Can 10 minutes of listening to a single tone actually change something deep inside your skull? The little gland people call the pineal, or the third eye. The internet is full of confident videos and looped tones promising sudden awakenings. Today, we're not selling certainty. We're running a simple, repeatable experiment you can do at home, watching carefully for what changes in your felt experience, and separating anecdote from evidence as honestly as we can. First, a quick word of context. For centuries and across many traditions, people have connected sound and attention to shifts in consciousness. Some ancient and esoteric writings, including texts associated with so-called Gnostic groups, like the Gospel of Philip, describe inner marks and moments of recognition, phrases that later spiritual communities translated into practices aimed at the pineal or third eye. That's cultural background, not scientific proof. More recently, practitioners of sound healing and binaural beat enthusiasts have attributed different effects to specific frequencies. One frequency that keeps popping up in these communities is 963Hz, sometimes called a solfeggio tone, or linked to spiritual awakening. Peer-reviewed research specifically testing 963Hz for pineal alteration is currently lacking. Most claims are anecdotal or speculative. Keep that in mind as we proceed. This is an exploratory test of experience, not a clinical trial. Before we begin, you should also know who should not try this without consultation. If you have epilepsy or a seizure disorder, if you are prone to dissociation or have serious psychiatric conditions, please consult a medical professional before doing sensory experiments with sustained tones. If, at any point, you feel dizzy, nauseous, faint, or otherwise unwell, stop the session and seek help if needed. This is not medical advice. It's a guided self-observation protocol. Your safety and comfort come first. Here's the hypothesis we're testing. If a 10-minute exposure to a 963 Hz tone reliably influences the subjective sense of the pineal or third eye region, then a consistent pattern should appear across baseline checks and post-listening checks. If we see random variation, that suggests the effect is more about expectation, attention, or individual variability. We're aiming for transparency. Do the exercise, record your numbers, and then compare. Settle in. You'll need a quiet room, comfortable seating or a place to lie down, and preferably headphones if you plan to use a binaural-style track. If you only have speakers, that's still valid. Just note it in your log. Have a notebook or a notes app ready to record your baseline ratings and short qualitative notes. Prepare 3 simple baseline checks. These are adapted from older body-focused practices, but simplified and safe. No force, no pressure, only gentle attention. Baseline check A, base of skull. Gently tuck your fingertips where the base of your skull meets the top of your neck. Don't press hard, just let your fingers rest there. Close your eyes if that helps. For 10 to 20 seconds, notice any warmth, cooling, pressure, tingling, or lack of sensation. Give this a number from 0 to 5, where 0 is no noticeable sensation and 5 is a strong, clear sensation. Baseline check B, outer edge of your hand. Look at or lightly touch the outside edge of your own hand, the area roughly between the pinky finger and the wrist. Again, no force. Notice texture, tension, subtle vibrations, lines on the skin, or any tingling. Rate it 0 to 5. Baseline check C, sternum center. Place 2 fingers gently above the center of the sternum, not on the heart, not pressing deeply, just resting over the bone at the center of your chest. Notice warmth, pulsing, ease of breathing, or anything else. Rate it 0 to 5. Write down these 3 baseline numbers and 1 quick descriptive phrase for each check. For example, 1, faint warmth, or 0, nothing noticeable. That simple log is what will make your experience comparable to others and useful for later analysis. If you plan to try this with us, now is the moment to subscribe and make sure you get our follow-up where we compile results. Hit subscribe if you want to run the test at home and share your numbers afterward in the comments. We'll give you a template for doing that. A brief technical note about 963 Hz and audio delivery. 963 Hz refers to a frequency, cycles per second, and in pure form it's a single sine wave at that pitch. Some tracks present 963 Hz as a pure tone, others layer it into binaural beats. Two slightly different frequencies presented to each ear that the brain perceives as a beat, and some present it as a complex sound within music. For this protocol, a single clean 963 Hz sine tone or a simple binaural track with a 963 Hz component is appropriate. Headphones are recommended if you're using binaural audio, so each ear receives the intended signal. If you're unsure which track to use, choose one that states clearly it is 963 Hz and is free of sudden loud peaks, music drops, or spoken overlays. Keep volume safe and comfortable. Loud enough to be clear. Quiet enough that you could still speak a word aloud without pain. Now the procedure in sequence so you can replicate it exactly later. Prepare your space. Record baseline ABC ratings and notes. Start a 10-minute 963 Hz track. Follow the brief guided prompts I'll give, then repeat the 3 checks and record post-listening ratings and brief notes. If you want to be extra rigorous, have someone else play the track for you or use a randomized playlist that includes a silent or placebo track. For now, we'll run this as an open, single-condition test focused on subjective reporting. We're about to begin the 10-minute listening segment. Remember, breathe naturally. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, stop. During the tone, I'll speak just twice briefly, once early and once later, and then again with a closing prompt. The bulk of the time is for you to listen and observe. Close your eyes if you wish. Let your shoulders drop. Take 3 slow, easy breaths, in through the nose, out through the mouth, lengthening the exhale slightly. Bring your attention gently to the base of your skull. Rest your awareness there without trying to change anything. As the tone starts, notice your breath, the temperature of the room, and any movement in the body. If thoughts come, as they always do, label them silently as thinking and return to noticing the physical sensations. There is no requirement that anything happen. Begin the 10-minute 963 Hz audio now. The narration continues only with 2 short prompts during the tone and then a final prompt at the end. First prompt during the tone. If you notice a subtle tingling, warmth, or pressure, anywhere from the base of your skull to the space between your eyebrows, simply observe it without judgment. Note whether it is steady, pulsing, shifting, or fading. Second prompt during the tone. Bring a soft attention to the outer edge of your hands and then to the center of your chest. No need to move. Just notice what's happening there. Any change in breath depth, any new warmth, any sense of clarity or quiet. End of the 10-minute audio. Closing prompt. Begin to deepen your breath. Wiggle your fingers and toes. When ready, open your eyes. Take a moment to reorient. Now repeat the 3 baseline checks in the same order and the same manner you did before. Take A, base of skull. Rest your fingertips and notice warmth, pressure, tingling, or nothing at all. Rate 0 to 5 and write the number and 1 brief descriptor. Now check B, the outer edge of your hand. Rate 0 to 5. Finally, C, center of sternum. Rate 0 to 5. Add a short phrase for each. Take a breath and notice anything else. Did your mood shift at all? Did breathing feel different? Did mental clarity increase, decrease, or not change? Write a 1-line note. Breath calmer, mild headache, no change, or whatever fits. Now let's talk about what people commonly report and how to interpret those reports. From the informal data we and other communities have collected, several recurring sensations appear. Some people report warmth or a sense of pressure at the base of the skull. Others notice tingling or a faint pulsing in the forehead area between the eyebrows. Some feel a shift in breath or a sense of loosening in the chest. A smaller number report vivid visual impressions with eyes closed. These are subjective reports, phenomenology, not measurements of pineal anatomy. Experiences vary widely and can depend on expectations, the environment, your current stress level, and how focused your attention is before the experiment. There are several plausible mechanisms that could produce the sensations people describe. One is auditory entrainment. Sustained tones can influence neural oscillations by encouraging neurons to fire in synchrony with the rhythm of an external sound. That might alter the felt texture of attention or increase the salience of subtle bodily signals. Another mechanism is increased interoceptive attention. When you train attention inward for even a few minutes, you become more sensitive to low-level bodily sensations you normally filter out. Expectation and placebo effects also play a significant role. If you come into the experiment convinced you will feel something, your brain is set to detect faint events and interpret them as meaningful. A further possibility is modulation of the autonomic nervous system. Relaxing breath and quiet listening can increase vagal tone, which influences heart rate, breathing patterns, and bodily warmth, producing somatic sensations that may be interpreted as activation. All of these explanations are compatible with the kinds of reports we're seeing, and none of them require a literal physical restructuring of the pineal gland. If you want to go beyond subjective reporting, there are physiological measures that labs use to study sound's influence on the brain and body. EEG can measure changes in brainwave patterns, heart rate variability, HRV, can index autonomic shifts, and biochemical assays like salivary melatonin could theoretically track pineal-related hormonal changes. These methods require lab equipment, careful controls, and ethical oversight. At present, peer-reviewed evidence specifically targeting 963Hz and showing a direct effect on pineal function is lacking. Broad work on auditory entrainment and binaural beats exists, but specific claims about pineal alteration are not established. So when someone online declares the pineal opened after a single listening, the honest response is, interesting personal report, but not proof of anatomical change. Let's consider 3 likely outcomes you might observe and what they would mean. Outcome 1. Your post-listening ratings show a clear, repeatable increase at one or more checkpoints, and many others reporting under similar conditions show the same pattern. This would suggest a reliable subjective effect worth investigating further under controlled conditions. Blind testing, placebo controls, physiological measures. Outcome 2. Your ratings change randomly or not at all, with high variability among different people. That points to individual sensitivity and expectation effects, rather than a universal property of 963Hz. Outcome 3. No consistent subjective pattern emerges, but some measurable physiological signal appears in lab settings. That would indicate a subtle neural or autonomic effect, without necessarily meaning pineal activation, in any mystical sense. For viewers who logged their numbers and shared them following the comment template we'll provide, aggregated patterns will be useful. Even thousands of anecdotal reports can highlight consistent directions for future research, but they cannot substitute for randomized blinded studies. A few practical tips for repeating this experiment responsibly. Keep volume moderate and safe. Avoid long continuous listening sessions beyond what you can tolerate. If you're doing multiple runs, space them out and intersperse neutral listening conditions to control for time-of-day effects. Note sleep, recent caffeine, and mood on your log, because those factors influence interoception and autonomic tone. If you want to be methodical, run a blind condition where you listen to a neutral tone or silence without knowing whether the 963Hz tone is playing. Ask a friend to randomize tracks for you. If you can access basic heart rate data from a smartwatch, log it before and after. But interpret with caution. Short-term changes in HRV are noisy and require averages and proper controls. So what is the verdict? After guiding multiple listeners through this protocol and reviewing many anecdotal reports, the honest conclusion is this. A single 10-minute exposure to 963Hz can produce noticeable subjective changes for some people. Warmth, tingling, breath shifts, or a different sense of clarity. Those changes are real in the sense that they are subjectively experienced. That is the core of anamnesis-like recognition, a remembered sensation felt in the body. But subjective change is not the same as proof of a physical transformation to the pineal gland itself. There is no definitive evidence here to claim that a 10-minute tone physically alters pineal tissue or permanently opens a third eye. The data point us toward promising, replicable subjective effects that merit controlled study rather than triumphalist declarations of bodily transformation. If you were in the experiment with us, take a moment now to compare your baseline and post-listening numbers. Did any checkpoint increase by 2 points or more? Did qualitative notes shift from no change to mild warmth? Or did new sensations appear? These patterns, when shared and aggregated, help us build hypotheses for lab testing. For instance, whether certain people with high autonomic reactivity or strong expectation are more likely to report effects. If you're interested in deeper investigation, here are steps that would strengthen future work. Use blinded conditions where the listener doesn't know whether the 963 Hz tone is playing. Include a placebo tone or silence. Collect objective measures like EEG or HRV when possible. Record the exact audio file and volume. And control for time of day and medication. Ethical review and medical oversight are essential if you attempt hormonal measures like melatonin assays. Before we close, let me name openly the esoteric language we touched earlier. Terms like monad, demiurge, and archontes come from particular philosophical and Gnostic traditions. They frame spiritual experience in mythic terms and carry specific cosmological meanings for those traditions. When I bring them up, it's as historical context, as one way people have historically made sense of inner experience, not as scientific explanation. The Gospel of Philip and similar texts are valuable sources for studying past ideas about inner marks and awakening, but they are not canonical scripture for most major religious communities, and they do not provide empirical proof that a sound will alter brain tissue. Finally, if you tried this protocol, I'd be grateful if you share your experience using this comment template so results are easy to compile. Tag, baseline, AXBYCZ, post, AXBYCZ, one-line note. For example, Anon 1, base, 102, post, 3A14, felt warmth above sternum and lightness behind eyes. That single-line format keeps things standardized and helps reveal patterns in aggregate. One last reminder, this experiment is about noticing and documenting. It's about reclaiming a simple method of embodied verification, testing rather than taking viral claims on faith. If you felt something, honor it, describe it, and consider what it might mean for you personally. If you felt nothing, that's valuable information too. Neither outcome is a failure. If you'd like us to compile the community data and explore a more controlled follow-up, potentially with blind conditions or basic physiological measures, let us know in the comments and subscribe so you don't miss the results. We're interested in running more rigorous follow-ups, but that requires planning and resources. Your participation and interest help make it possible. Thank you for listening carefully and for approaching this with curiosity and caution. Remember, experiences vary, evidence matters, and your body is a reliable instrument when you learn to observe it honestly. We'll gather the reports, look for patterns, and decide together what the next step should be, whether it's another community experiment, an interview with a researcher, or a lab-controlled study. Until then, be safe, be curious, and if this touched you in some way, share your one-line report in the format above.